I was really puzzled and surprised when everyone was calling the power patch to be the final patch for Baldur's Gate 3 that Larian was going to roll out. It was precisely because IGN, Eurogamer, and outlets like that, they were saying, oh, this is going to be the final thing before they move on to their next game. There's not going to be any more DLCs nor expansions nor anything like that. And that was far from the truth. Like, this was something that I called out previously on my previous coverage for the patch notes and what have you for Baldur's Gate 3. The prior patch, it was never going to be their final patch. They said openly that they were still trying to implement the crossplay. Because while we do have still cross-save, there is still no way for you to crossplay with your friends. So that is something that they are adding as a major feature on this new patch that it's going to be rolling out on 2025. The crossplay. That you're now going to be able to play on PlayStation 5, PC, and Xbox seamlessly with your friends. I do want to stress out something that it's not mentioned in here, that it's not properly addressed in here that much, which is the same case that happens with modding and the cross-saving. One thing to have in mind that if you're trying to, it is not available yet, but once it becomes available and you're trying to play with someone, make sure that you're playing with someone that doesn't have like any mods, even from the mod manager on the in-game, for you to be able to play with them. Because right now the cross save, it still doesn't work if you have mods on a save file. You cannot transfer that save file to another platform if you have mods into that save file, because it just doesn't work. So that's kind of a troubleshooting that they are not addressing in here. Now, what I was surprised is actually the subclasses, because now we are going to also have 12 new subclasses. This is hundreds of more playtime for everyone, because trying a new class, it's always amazing. This is something that I was not expecting, and this is something that I'm very happy about. There's one subclass for each specific class, and they alter the playstyles like you have no idea. Then again, these are classes, official classes, that come from the 5th edition for Dungeons and Dragons. So let's just do a little bit of a quick rundown on what can you expect on these classes. I have used and seen people use these classes on D&D campaigns and tabletop games, so I'm going to give you a brief explanation of what can you expect from these classes, as well as remember that there's a little bit of a homebrewiness that Larian is doing to adapt these classes and to balance them to be at the same level of power than other ones. So you have, for example, the Bard College of Glamour. Now, bards, they are like they have never been like this. The subclasses have never been like that. I do not want to get in trouble in here. It's just that the bards can do everything that they want to do. However, the most important thing about this guy is that this guy can heal, which is something that bots can already do by itself. He's also going to be able to charm and CC enemies. It's just a bard doing bard stuff. So yeah, there's nothing like that amazing in here. I'm not saying that it's not amazing, I'm saying it's not as amazing as other classes. Because, for example, we have the Barbarian, the Path of the Giants, and the Cleric Death Domain. Now, the Barbarian, the Path of the Giants, if it is already pretty funny to toss enemies at each other in each other faces and like grab an enemy and toss it towards another, it's always hilarious. Now you can use Giant's Rage, which is not only going to increase your strength, but it's also going to increase your size, allowing you to use that more proficiently. Or for example, with the Cleric for the Death Domain, which one of the biggest features that they have in here, this is something a little bit of a homebrewiness that it allows you to explode corpses to deal damage to people. So this is always something very powerful that it needs to be properly balanced for it not to be broken, but it's pretty cool. Then we have the Druid, the Circle of Stars. What this guy basically does is that it based on the constellations, he can do like kind of different things. Like for example, the Acha allows him to deal radiant damage, or for example, the Dragon constellation allows you to have a bonus on your rolls based on your constitution. So it not only gives you like these new animations or the aesthetic of the character on itself, but it also allows you to branch your playstyle a little bit more with your druid right here. And with the Paladin, we have the Oath of the Crown, which is basically the paladinesque that you can that you can be. Like this is basically your more than anything your tank, that it's always upholding justice, but he swears himself to protecting people and protecting the royalty. So for example, you are the force, you are the shield of the prince of the royalty. In ideally, you're going to be able to receive damage and protecting other people while receiving damage. So nothing that much of a change in here. Paladins are always so very powerful. So aside from being very tanky, you can also protect like the less tankier characters, which is amazing, not gonna lie. Now with the fighter, we have the Arcane Acha, which is, yeah, I mean, I have always said this. The difference between Ranger and Fighters, which people often confuse them quite a lot when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, is that, for example, if you want to purely make an Acha, you can make an Acha out of a Thief, out of a Ranger, out of a Fighter, out of many different things you can make Achas. But I'd say that arguably if your main focus is being an Acha on itself, I've said Acha several times, I know, but if your main focus is that specific something, then the Fighters are one of the best choices that you can do so, because they can attack several times, up to 10 times once you reach level 12 at the very least. And the Arcane Acha, it allows you to have a little bit more of a saving throws and that to cost saving throws on the enemies. It also has new animations, as you can see right here, so yeah, very very cool. One of the things that I like about this type of classes, like for example the Achas and the monks, the Drunken Master, for example, is that this bases the playstyle on different things that you gather in the world. So for example, for the Acha, it's the arrows, and the arrows are very very powerful. The class in itself, the subclass in itself, properly built, it's very powerful, but if you add arrows, it becomes a broken monster. Similar case happens in here, although not that much. For you to be able to build a Drunken Master, you are going to need to start looking for resources at all times, which is going to be alcohol. And that alcohol can be purchased at inns, but it can also be grabbed from the ground. If you notice that there's someone on the battlefield, then that might be the difference between you and a very very powerful enemy. Whenever you run out of that resource, you can be looking for alcohol on the battlefield. And then we have also the Swarm Keeper, which basically it's a ranger, the ranger that uses the nature of swarm little things, like for example moths that they deal psychic damage, but you can also be using the Legion of Beasts that deal piercing damage. Now the flurry of moths is also very powerful because it gives you the potential of blinding your enemy, and remember that when you blind your enemy, you have the enemy has disadvantage and you have the advantage over them, and that's not only for you but for the entire crew. So if you can be blinding enemies while not using magical darkness, which is very powerful, but it also constrains your party, it's something very powerful to have. Then we have the Swashbuckler for the rogue, and this is basically like the just playing dirty, like your regular rogue being a rogue. You can also blind enemies, you can disarm enemies, you can use footwork to make sure that the enemy does not do opportunity attacks against you. So these are like this little, you can build, for example, being proficient on some type of weapon or playstyle or fight style that you would want to have, and then have these guys right here. A very very powerful multi-class for this would be of course the fighter, because you can have the extra attacks while also blinding the enemies, disarming the enemies, having a little bit more proficiency in doing so. Very very powerful class. The shadow magic for the sorcerer is the one that I am least excited about. You might be thinking, well, it's very powerful because this is going to have superior dark vision, which is better than dark vision, which is going to allow me to use magical darkness to cheese the game like we do with the warlocks, because it's something very powerful to have. No. Superior dark vision and dark vision on itself, they do not allow you to see through magical darkness, so this is not a class that you can use to cheese the game. It's one of the ones that I'm less excited about, because there's not so much that you can do with darkness in this game if it's not magical darkness. So yeah, a little bit of a bummer. Then we have the Warlock Hexblade, which is always going to be very powerful if you want to make a melee Warlock. It's always very powerful to make it alongside with the darkness, because you can be blinding the enemies, having advantages against the enemies that have disadvantages against you. So having the chance to actually have the Hexblade on itself, on top of that, it's very powerful. And then finally, something that a lot of us were expecting to have on the base game and that we didn't have access to until mod came along, the blade singing, which is basically essentially your spell blade. You can now make a mage warrior that is going to have new animations with your weapons, and it's just one of a personal favorite, and I know that it's a favorite for a lot of people. And then finally, one of the major features is going to be the photo mode, and the photo mode in here, it's really cool. So you essentially have your photo mode right here, but you have a whole bunch of different options, like for example allowing you for your characters to have emotes, and with those emotes you can take several different pictures. But also there's the scene settings where you can decide who do you want to have in the picture, who do you not want to have on the picture. There's also the post-processing effects. They have said that this is not something that you are going to be able to use in-game, like it happens with many other games out there. But if you want to do a little bit of a color grading, mess up with the contrast, with the saturation, or maybe the bloom and the particles of the scene that you have in front of you, this is where you can get creative with this right here. And it's also going to have frames, stickers, and all kind of crazy stuff, so that you can get really creative with the photo mode right in here. So a little bit late, but I'm guessing that we are going to be getting some really cool shots for Baldur's Gate 3, because this is one of the most beautiful and breathtaking worlds that I've ever seen in this generation. It doesn't have like the best graphical quality out there, it doesn't push the boundaries of the graphical quality generation, but I think that this is one of the most beautiful worlds that I have ever seen, and that since it is an isometric game, you cannot really appreciate how beautiful and how detailed it really is when you really close up, because they actually did take the extra time to make a detailed world. So these pictures that we're going to have right here on Baldur's Gate 3, I cannot wait for to see what kind of stuff can the community come up with. Anyways, if you like the content, like and super appreciate it. And also, if you're a gorgeous, beautiful person, you're in there, gorgeous, beautiful person, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, have a beautiful day, goodbye.